Hello and welcome to Kirklees Armed Forces TV. My name is Dr Milton Brown, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Elizabeth Smith, Public Engagement Coordinator with the Commonwealth War Graves Foundation. Since 2017, the foundation has played a vital role in keeping the memories of Commonwealth war dead alive, preserving their incredible legacy from future generations. Elizabeth, thanks for joining us today. And let's get straight into it. In your role, how do you connect with global mission to local towns and neighbourhoods? What does a typical community partnership entail?
Well, my role is all about connecting people to our casualties, and it's really important that we do that because it's by getting that engagement that people actually understand that their story and the story of their communities is not just distant history, but it's actually something that's really relevant. Often the first connection that we get is by letting people know that in the United Kingdom there are over 12,000 sites with war graves in them. Many people who have heard about the Commonwealth War Graves Commission just know about our big sites abroad, and they're not aware that in the United Kingdom we commemorate over 300,000 casualties. So wherever you are in the UK, you're not very far away from a site with war graves in it. Take, for example, Kirklees. We've got tens of sites across the district. Last year, I took Harpreet Uppal, the MP for Huddersfield, on a tour of Egerton Cemetery. And to help her connect with our casualties, I did just what I would do with any other member of the community. I took her to gravesides. I showed her photos where we had them of casualties. I told her about how old somebody was, which street they lived on, where they'd worked, where they'd gone to school. And it's by sharing that information with the public, it helps them to make those connections. The population of Kirklees has changed a lot since the end of the Second World War. It's a much more diverse population now, and it's really important, not just for the diverse population, but for people in general, that the contribution, the huge contribution and sacrifice that was made by the people of the Commonwealth is known about. So if I was going to give a talk, I would usually include one of our casualties from the Commonwealth who lost their life serving. And another really good way to get people to connect is that we have an online database with our 1.7 million casualties are named on there. If people visit that and put their surname in, it's an interesting way for them to find a casualty who shares the same surname as they do.
So there's research involved, there's speaking to diverse families, etc. What's the team around you then? Is there a huge team?
Well, it's a big job, and we're a small team, um, but we're a very hard-working team. So I'm actually the public engagement coordinator from Essex all the way up to the Scottish border. So I cover all of the east of England, East Yorkshire and the North East. And of course, there are only 7 days a week,
Yeah.
so it's a lot to work with. But we've got a number of volunteers who help us on our public engagement program, so we are able to reach a bigger audience than we would do otherwise.
With fewer direct connections to world wars, how can you make the Commission's community work relevant and engaging for younger generations and communities?
So as time goes on, memories fade. The direct connection between the living and those who lost their lives serving in the First and Second World War does weaken. I'm speaking as a former primary school teacher, so I know that children all have a real inherent curiosity, and they are very keen to learn and very keen to engage as long as you find the right hook. And I find with children, just as with um, ordinary members of the public, that actually telling the stories is a really good hook. Um, when I work with children, I'm often working with children in year 5 and year 6, so 10 and 11-year-olds. I would usually pick to tell them a story about a casualty whose as close in age to them as possible. So I normally talk about one of our 17-year-old casualties, for example, and it's not as difficult for a child of 10 and 11 to put their feet into the shoes of somebody who was 17. Often they will have an older sibling who is around that age. So that helps, because that helps make an initial connection. Taking children to our sites has a huge impact when they're standing next to somebody's grave. And if you can take them to a plot of war graves, so where we've got a number of war graves together, that helps them to think as well about the human cost of war. In Harrogate, we've got a big cemetery where we have a large plot of over 900 graves there. Most of them are aircrew from the Second World War. And each year I host visits for a number of schools to that site. And I've got photographs of some of the casualties. And I remember the first time I put the photographs out, and one boy chanced upon the grave of a fighter pilot from Trinidad, looked down, saw the photo, and I was within earshot, and I won't forget how his voice sounded. There was an element, first of all, of surprise, of pride and joy. And he said, "He looks just like me." And that was a really amazing piece of connection, happening just there. And I'll tell them a story of some casualties, including a casualty from the Commonwealth. I give the children the names, or some names, from their First World War memorial, and they research on our database, and they find out where those men and women from Huddersfield are buried. And wherever they're buried by the Commission, that is where they will have served. So they get to see the global reach of the people from Huddersfield, where they were fighting around the world. Sometimes it's holiday destinations, for example, like Turkey, which often surprises them. And I will have found in the newspaper archives images or clippings about the casualties, so children can see a face or find out an address or a sports club that somebody used to be a part of, and realise that sports club is still in existence, and in fact they go to that rugby club. And again, it's those connections that are made then from those details.
Yeah. How do you tailor that engagement with families from the general public, and especially Eastern European, African descendant families, South Asian families? How do you engage or tailor the engagement for them?
So I generally try, as far as possible, to tell stories that are about casualties who are buried in the UK. But we have people from all of those areas that you've mentioned buried in the United Kingdom. If I just start with Eastern Europeans to begin with, the Polish contribution to the Allies during the Second World War was huge. And whilst Poland wasn't part of the Commonwealth, many Polish servicemen served with the Allies. So there was a large number, for example, of Poles who served with the Royal Air Force. And in the UK, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission actually maintains those war graves. So they have a slightly different shape to Commonwealth war graves. They've got pointy tops on them like this.
Oh.
So it's good to be able to tell Polish children, children in general, about the contribution of the Polish casualties. So in Yorkshire, for example, I know we've got Polish war graves at Fulford Cemetery. I think there's some at there will be some within West Yorkshire as well. For other communities, so say the Caribbean community at Stonefall Cemetery in Harrogate, we have 6 men from the Caribbean who are buried there. 5 of them were ground crew. They were part of a contingent of, I think, of about 2,500 men from the Caribbean who were stationed at Hunmanby Moor. I hate saying that word. It's near Filey. It was a former Butlins camp, and that's where they were stationed, and they did their training. And 5 of those men who were buried at Stonefall were there and trained there. They all died of natural causes. And then we have the fighter pilot from Trinidad, who was actually killed on an exercise over Northumberland, and he's buried at Stonefall. And we have a photo of him. His name was Ulrich Leslie Lukian, and so that helps with the connection when you can show a photograph. For people from South Asian background, in Newcastle Cemetery, on our screen wall there, we have the name of Hukam Chand Mehta, who was a fighter pilot with the Royal Indian Air Force. He was obviously it was undivided India at the time. He was from Karachi, which is now Pakistan, and as far as I remember, he lost his life on a training mission over Northumberland. He was cremated, and he's on the cremation memorial there. Again, we've got a photo of him, so that helps with engagement too.
Your volunteers are often the lifeblood of any local remembrance. Can you tell me about the volunteer program and the scale of the operation?
Yes, so our foundation really is responsible for the volunteers, because without the foundation who've been able to bring in funding, and we wouldn't be able to have the volunteer scheme as it stands now. So I think it was about 5 years ago we started with a volunteer program, and now we have got in the United Kingdom over 2,500 volunteers, and we've just expanded the volunteer program out as well to Canada and I've forgotten which other country, but Canada definitely has started with volunteers. So in the United Kingdom, there are lots of different volunteer roles that people can undertake, from helping in our archives to doing research, to uploading stories onto our story portal, to hands-on roles in cemeteries and public engagement. And people can find out about them via our website, CWGC.org. All the opportunities available will be on there. And when we recruit volunteers, we train them. A member of staff will be responsible for them. So as a public engagement coordinator, I'm responsible for our speaker volunteers. So in Yorkshire and the North East, I've got about 40 volunteer speakers who go out and give free talks to groups about the work of the Commission. And our speakers are really enthusiastic about the work of the Commission first and foremost. And when they go out to a group, they pass on that enthusiasm and interest to the audience. And actually, we get loads of really positive feedback from groups who have heard our speakers. And quite often, organisers say they had their biggest audience for the whole year from all of the talks that they had on offer to their group, which is really good. And sometimes for the speaker, after giving a talk, somebody will say, oh, my mum's brother was in the Merchant Navy and they died during the Second World War. So do you commemorate them, and where would they be commemorated, or where are they buried? And the speaker's able to look on their phone and find out, a burial place for somebody. And that is such an amazing feeling when you manage to do that, because you are directly connecting families. And it's strange to think that there are still siblings alive today who don't realise that their older brother has got a grave in Egypt, let's say, because it's just never been talked about, and they don't know about it. So that's, you know, a really lovely, satisfying feeling for our speakers when that happens. But our largest volunteer program is probably our Eyes on Hands On. Well, it's definitely our Eyes on Hands On program, and the volunteers there, they number, I think, just over 80 in Kirklees. We've got about 400 across the north of England, and they are matched with a local cemetery with war graves in it, and they commit to visiting that cemetery at least twice a year to report back on the state of the headstone, and also, where needed, to give the headstone a clean. So they're trained in how to clean the headstones, because it is very easy to damage, and these are really historical monuments, so we don't want them to be damaged. When they do that, send their report back to headquarters, then our operations team will pick up if there's anything about the headstone that's changed. If it started to lean, it needs to be replumbed. If a grass cutter has got too near it and has damaged it, and it needs to be a new headstone needs to go in, or, you know, or whatever. So that's been really, really beneficial. And our volunteers on the Eyes on Hands On programme do talk about how they like volunteering for us, because they want to pay back the service that has been given, and it's a real honour for them to do that. And in fact, I think our volunteers probably split quite neatly, generally, into 3 areas. We've got a lot of people who have served, who want to volunteer and give back. We've got another group of volunteers who maybe have a family connection with us, in that we commemorate somebody in their family tree. And we've got another group of volunteers who have no military connection, no family connection, but who think it's really important that those who sacrificed their lives should be commemorated.
Remembrance traditions evolve. How is the Commission changing the commemoration?
Well, we like to think at the Commission that we are the global organisation for commemoration. And one really important project, which has been funded via a donation that was received to the Commonwealth War Graves Foundation, is our story portal. It's called Forevermore. And I think it was about 18 months ago that the Forevermore project started. So it's a story portal. We're trying to gather more information on our casualties. We're trying to get their stories. Many people are surprised to know that the Commonwealth War Graves Commission only carries a limited amount of information about casualties. Our information came from military records. We know somebody's name, their rank, the unit they served with, their date of death, for example, but we don't know their actual story. And it's by knowing the stories that people connect with our casualties. So we had funding to create this online story portal, and we're aiming to be able to gather the story of all 1.7 million casualties. Oh. We have this week reached 10,000, which is a big milestone, but we've still got a long way to go. So we're trying to encourage members of the public to upload stories of those in their family tree who are our casualties, or local historians who might have researched all of the Second World War Roll of Honour for their village, to upload those stories onto our portal. It's accessible on our website, and people can upload images of casualties, images of the medals that were awarded, newspaper clippings, text telling us the story, and it's a really great way for those stories to be spread amongst the population, and for future generations to come to be able to read and to be able to make those connections. So that is a super way that people can commemorate casualties just from their own home. Yeah. And you know, sorry, go on, Milton. Were you going to ask something?
Please continue it.
I was just going to say that commemoration does look different. You don't have to have a standard remembrance service. One thing that the Commission is really keen to do is that we're trying to make young people more active in acts of commemoration. So for the D-Day 80 anniversary, we had a torch designed, Torch for Peace, and that was used at a lot of big national ceremonies, and it was used again last year for the VE Day 80 and VJ Day 80. And usually within those ceremonies it was used by being held by a veteran who then passed the torch on to a young person to symbolise that remembrance needs to continue, and it's the time now for younger generations to pick up that mantle and to take it forwards. A really good way we've been involving young people in commemoration is at Stonefall Cemetery in Harrogate. Back in 2018, a local woman, Benji Walker, whose son served with the Yorkshire Regiment, saw images of our sites on the continent where candles had been placed on Christmas Eve to remember the casualties there, and she established a Christmas candlelit remembrance at Stonefall Cemetery. So that's a big site where we've got over 900 casualties in one plot. And Benji contacted the local cadets, so we've had the Sea Cadets and the Army cadets are involved now in that service. It's a really laid back, sort of low-key remembrance service where members of the public are invited to come to the site. They are given tea lights. There's a group who sing Christmas carols while the tea lights are placed on the graves, and people are encouraged to read the names on those graves. And the cadets who come to take part, and they come in good numbers, help with the organisation of it and the distribution of the tea lights. They place some of the tea lights on themselves, and they also take an active part in the little service of remembrance. They usually, a couple of them will read poems, for example. They choose what it is that they want to bring to read at that service.
I guess I'm taken back just how enthusiastic you are and passionate about what you're doing. I mean, could you share with us why it means so much to you? Do you have a family member to remember as a veteran or serving soldier at the moment?
Well, actually, Milton, I think I sort of fall into that third category of people. I do have a younger sister who served in the army. I don't know. Yeah, she probably, I think she probably came out about 15 years ago. So I suppose I've got a link there. I've got my great aunt's husband is one of our casualties in Germany. I knew my great aunt very well. We used to see her every week at church. Obviously, I never knew her husband, but really, I would say I'm more of that third category of people without a real connection, and I'm not former services myself, but when I go to our sites and I read the stories of some of the casualties commemorated there, I feel like they're mine. You know, I've got 3 children who are now all teenagers. One of them is 19. She's old enough to serve. My 2 boys are slightly younger at 15 and 16. But you know, when I look at those names on headstones and I see the ages, and I think, in another time, that could have been my son.
Yeah. And that's the kind of drive that drives you, with the passion you have for the work you're doing. Wonderful. I want to say a big thank you for sharing your insights, for the important work you and the Commonwealth War Graves Foundation do, and ensuring the stories for those who gave their lives should never be forgotten, and we should all remember. I also want to say I find it fascinating how you're working with history and you're making history all at the same time and making it relevant and accessible to the broader general public. It's fantastic stuff you're doing, you and your colleagues. So keep on pushing and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks, Milton.
By engaging communities, supporting education and preserving memory, the foundation helps keep history alive in a way that is meaningful and deeply human. And to our viewers, if today's conversation has inspired you to learn more, get involved. I encourage you to explore the work of the Commonwealth War Graves Foundation. Thank you for watching Kirklees Armed Forces TV. Bye for now.